So for most of my life, I've been fascinated by millionaires. I've read dozens of books, done tons of research, personally interviewed many, all in an attempt to understand what has allowed these individuals to build wealth. And one thing I've learned is that most millionaires are not what they seem. They're definitely not the caricatures that the media and popular culture would have us believe, but more importantly, I've come to understand that there are a handful of things millionaires seem to know that the general public does not. These are things that make a huge difference in whether or not you can ultimately build wealth. So in this video, I'm going to share 4 things that millionaires know that you don't.
Because I know something you don't know. And what is that? I am not left-handed.
Probably the area where the average person's perception is most inaccurate about millionaires has to do with the kinds of cars millionaires typically drive. And whenever I present this information, people typically just frankly have a hard time believing it. But cars are one of the areas that really hold people back from building wealth, so it is vital to understand this. Basically, every survey for the last 30 years has yielded essentially the same results. The most popular brands of car driven by millionaires are Toyota, Honda, and Ford. Some of the least popular brands are Porsche, Land Rover, and Jaguar, and the almost non-existent millionaire car brands are things like Ferrari, Lamborghini, Maserati, Rolls-Royce. Basically, no millionaires drive those cars. And one of the most common questions I hear when I present this data is, if not millionaires, who is driving these luxury vehicles? And the answer to that is, of course, non-millionaires. Specifically, what Dr. Tom Stanley called aspirationals, people who make a lot of money, but also spend and consume most of their incomes trying to impress others.
Yes, this is off my Mercedes.
You see, a man who has to buy a big car like that's trying to compensate for a smaller.
Easy, Miss Doubtfire. In reality, though, those people are very adept at looking good, but really poor at transforming their incomes into wealth. On the other hand, most millionaires are extremely good at transforming even modest incomes into wealth because they keep their spending down by driving modest vehicles like Toyotas and Hondas, especially when they are building their first millions. Now, of course, many millionaires do eventually graduate to luxury brands like Lexus, Mercedes, and BMW once they have built some wealth, but that usually happens after, not before, they become millionaires. You know, lots of parents want their kids to grow up to be doctors. They think it's a sure path to wealth. But would it surprise you to learn that medical doctors aren't even in the top 5 millionaire careers? The top 5 millionaire careers are number 1, engineer, number 2, accountant, number 3, teacher, number 4, manager, and number 5, attorney. Now, other sources have cited small business owners and salespeople in the list, but those are probably understated because they don't fall into clean categories. The thing that millionaires understand about their careers is that wealth can be achieved in virtually any career field. Sure, it's easier if you're in a high-income job like law or medicine, but income does not mean wealth. There are plenty of teachers out there who have proven and are continuing to prove that you can build wealth and become a millionaire even on a very modest income. In the end, discipline and consistency prove to be more critical factors than income alone. Housing is another area where the millionaire lifestyle is deeply misunderstood. If your image of millionaire includes a mansion, you are generally mistaken. Most millionaires live in modest homes. In fact, some of the latest data indicate the typical millionaire lives in a house that is actually smaller than the typical home being built in America. In 2017, the average square footage of a new American home was 2,660, but at that time, the average home size of a millionaire was only 2,600 square feet. Even more important than that, though, is the fact that millionaires tend to live in neighborhoods where they make substantially more income than their neighbors. Why is that important? Well, because it allows them to use more of their incomes to build wealth and helps minimize the economic peer pressure to spend on virtually everything else. The bottom line is that millionaires tend to buy extremely modest homes relative to their incomes, and they generally choose to live in environments that minimize the temptations to spend heavily on consumer items. All of this, of course, helps them transform more of their incomes into wealth. Now, there's been a big push lately against traditional 4-year college degrees and toward things like the trades. And in general, I appreciate this movement and certainly believe we need to rethink how we're doing education in this country. However, higher education is still one of the top correlates of building wealth. Bottom line is, the more educated you are, the more likely you are to become a millionaire. Listen to these stats. 87% of millionaires, that's almost all of them, attained at least a 4-year college degree. 51%, a majority, attained at least a graduate degree, and 13% attained a terminal degree, so you're talking like a PhD or a medical or a law degree. Not to mention, the more educated, the higher their net worths tended to be. Check out these numbers. Those millionaires with no degree had an average net worth of $3,047,317. Those with a bachelor's degree had an average of $3,135,537. Those with a graduate degree had an average of $3,519,799. And for those millionaires with a terminal degree, the average net worth shot up to $5,353,543. So not only did the vast majority of millionaires attend college, but the further they went in their education, the higher their net worths tended to be. Now, it is interesting to note that I am both an exception and a testament to this data. I have a 4-year college degree and a law degree. However, in the last several years, I've made hundreds of thousands of dollars in income from careers which required no degree at all. My primary income sources have been my real estate brokerage and the residential construction company that I own. However, I certainly cannot say I would have been nearly as successful in those careers without my formal education. The knowledge and confidence and connections I built in college and law school have proven extremely profitable, even when I was not making money directly from my degrees. Interestingly, the data from the millionaire population is evidence that education matters, but grades not so much. While higher levels of education are associated with higher levels of net worth, high grades actually aren't. In fact, C students tended to have substantially higher average net worths than A or B students. I love this. And we're talking like 35% higher, not nothing here. The key takeaway from all this to me is that millionaires tend to be contrarians. When most of society is headed in one direction, millionaires tend to head the opposite way. They avoid the temptations that other people fall prey to, like buying expensive houses and cars, and they value things like education and traditional careers because they know that their ability to build wealth is mostly dependent on their discipline and their consistency. Hopefully you found this information interesting and helpful. If you did, I'd really appreciate it if you comment, let me know what you'd like to discuss next, and of course hit that subscribe button and come build wealth with me.